Okay, well, it is now Tuesday, and for the second time in 2 days, I have had to get out my little breaking news thing because it's so much more work to put the camera over there. Actually, it is, but anyway. Tuesday, 2 days into the week here, and my God, the hits, they just keep on coming. The New York Times has just come out with an article. Let me get back to the beginning. With the headline, Comey Memo says Trump asked him to end Flynn investigation. I will read you a bit of the article. Bear with me, because this just happened like a few minutes ago. Alright. So, President Trump asked then FBI Director James Comey to shut down the federal investigation into Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn. In an Oval Office meeting in February, according to a memo Mr. Comey wrote shortly after the meeting. Quote, "I hope you can let this go," the president told Mr. Comey according to the memo. "The existence of Trump's request is the clearest evidence that the president has tried to directly influence the Justice Department and FBI investigation into links between Mr. Trump's associates and Russia." Mr. Comey wrote the memo detailing his conversation with the president immediately after the meeting, which took place the day after Mr. Flynn resigned. According to two people who read the memo is part of a paper trail that Mr. Comey created documenting what he perceived as the president's improper efforts to influence a continuing investigation. An FBI agent's notes are widely held in a court as credible evidence of conversations. Mr. Comey shared the existence of the memo with senior FBI officials and close associates. The New York Times has not viewed a copy of the memo, which is unclassified, but one of Mr. Comey's associates read parts of the memo to a Times reporter. And from the memo, and I quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go," Mr. Trump told Mr. Comey according to the memo. Quote, "He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go." Mr. Trump told Mr. Comey that Mr. Flynn had done nothing wrong, according to the memo. Mr. Comey did not say anything to Mr. Trump about curtailing the investigation, only replying, "I agree he is a good guy." Now, evidently, this meeting took place in February. I guess it was like right after Flynn had to resign his position because of the investigation. But see, where was it? Okay, here we go. Describing the meeting itself, Mr. Comey had been in the Oval Office that day with other senior national security officials for a terrorism threat briefing. When the meeting ended, Mr. Trump told those present, including Mr. Pence and Attorney General Sessions, to leave the room except for Mr. Comey. Alone in the Oval Office, Mr. Trump began the discussion by condemning leaks to the news media, saying that Mr. Comey should consider putting reporters in prison for publishing classified information, according to one of Mr. Comey's associates. Mr. Trump then turned the discussion to Mr. Flynn. After writing up a memo that outlined the meeting, Comey shared it with senior FBI officials. Mr. Comey and his aides perceived Mr. Trump's comments as an effort to influence the investigation, but they decided that they would try to keep the conversation secret, even from the FBI agents working on the case, so that the details of the conversation wouldn't influence the investigation. Now, this is basically goes into a lot more detail. I'll of course put a link in the description below to the full article. Now this could potentially be huge. Depending on exactly how the laws are written and if that memo comes to light, if it can be used as evidence, depending on what the circumstances are surrounding it. And now this does specifically have him basically saying, let it go. Asking him to drop the investigation into Michael Flynn. And that's not good. Well, at least it's not good for Trump. Well, honestly, hell, it's not really good for anyone because really when you think about both the best and worst case scenario would be what people have been starting to talk about, which would be Donald Trump being impeached. Best case because we get rid of Donald Trump, but it's also not good because then we're left with President Pence. Mr. Pray Away the Gay Pence. AKA Cotton Hill. You gotta admit there's some resemblance there. But anyway, yeah, this is, wow. Like, they cannot go a day without something blowing up in their faces. And, this is already shaping up to be a very interesting week. Now, on the subject of this, I am very excited to see where this goes. Because, honestly, for one thing, I kind of like watching them squirm a bit. I do political commentary, watching, watching like how Sean Spicer tries to handle this, today's scandal has been, a big part of my weekly entertainment. So that's going to be interesting. But going forward, like I said, this is like just happened, so I have to see what else is gonna come out. Like what kind of weight, like if this memo is made public or at least circulated in the government more widely, like what kind of weight it's gonna carry and what the fallout could be from this. You already have the issues, the whole thing of the abrupt firing of James Comey, where people in the White House were not even told until like right when it happened. So in some cases they weren't reached in time. Like for instance, Comey wasn't reached in time, who basically heard that he had been fired on the news when he was in Los Angeles, I believe, at a FBI function, which is kind of a dick move. I mean, they could at least have waited a day or two and brought him in. Anyway, this is also, I believe this meeting was immediately after Trump had dinner with James Comey, and in like early February or late January, had dinner with him and repeatedly asked him. I believe the article does mention it. Okay, here we go. The Oval Office meeting occurred a little more than 2 weeks after Mr. Trump summoned Mr. Comey to the White House for a lengthy one-on-one dinner at the residence. At the dinner on January 27th, Mr. Trump asked Mr. Comey at least 2 times for a pledge of loyalty, which Mr. Comey declined, according to one of Mr. Comey's associates. And this leads into all kinds of other things too. Like there's the rant on, or little comment on Twitter that Trump made a few days ago about, said, and I quote, "James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press." Which makes me kind of wonder about this memo that has surfaced. Maybe it's someone at the FBI going, "Oh, really? Well, you weren't the only one recording shit." But yeah, this is this whole new can of worms. Again, too early to tell where this is going to lead. You know, I said it depends on what kind of weight this memo could hold in Congress, or with the Justice Department. Yeah, it's sketchy, you know. So it's not really clear yet. So we'll see. I will keep updated on this, and yeah, that is pretty much it. Another day, another scandal. On a side note, I think I'm really gonna have to start sending, I don't know, like, I feel bad, and I kind of want to start sending like care packages to the White House of like for Sean Spicer, just like, and just filled with like Pepto Bismol, you know, some Rolaids, some Alka Seltzer. I mean, you know that dude has got to be like this fucking close to having an ulcer right now. I mean, it's just constant. You know, you had the initial firing, then you had Trump blabbing to the freaking Russians, which, by the way, on the Russian subject, one of the Sergeys, there's two, Sergei something, Sergei Kislyak, something like that. He was there at this meeting where Trump blabbed about intel that was obtained from someone who did not want it spread around. And evidently, that guy is actually suspected of being a Russian spy recruiter. Allegedly. So, nice job there, Donnie. So there's that. I'm sorry, I forgot. Anyway, yeah, you had that. You had the Comey firing. You had the blabbing about top secret information to Russians. Now you've got an actual record of the president trying to influence an FBI investigation. You know, followed by now the firing of the guy in charge of the FBI. And it's only Tuesday. Hell, it's not even dark yet. It's only like 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. There's at least room for one or two more fuck ups before today is over. So, anyway, I'll keep you posted. Like, comment, subscribe. Particularly comment. I like to know kind of what everyone's opinion is on what's going on and what they think is happening. And I will see you next time.